Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is so very special. We are going back in the days where we used to dupe palettes. I am going to create a very similar color story to the newest palette that was revealed by Beaute and it is the Vamp palette. I am drooling for that color story. I love a good purpley blue palette, but with like those silvery tones, the purples, the iridescent shades, the holochromy shades. I mean, it is calling to me, and I was like, Smithy, you need this palette in your life. But as you know, before any palette that calls to me, before buying those palettes, I definitely reach out to my own collection just to see if I do have those shades in my collection or not. And to my surprise, I tried to dupe that palette, and this is what we've come with. You tell me if this is not similar, I don't know what is. And I am pretty sure if you are a good indie makeup lover, I feel like these palettes, you would find it in your collection. So if you're ready, let's begin. Okay, let's begin with the palette. This palette launches on October 4th and it will retail for $72 on the Beaute site. I am an affiliate with the brand. I do not get any PR from the brand, so hence duping the palette. But yes, I would love to receive PR from the brand. I have several palettes from Beaute and obviously you'll see it in the comparison swatches too, how many of them I own. They're one of my favorite indie brands that I have in my collection, but saying that, I cannot own everything from a brand just because I want it, and especially if I have similar shadows in my collection. So let's begin duping this palette because I know you are here for it. I actually did a poll on Instagram and the results was overwhelming. Like 100% of the people voted, and there were a lot more votes this time, voted yes, I want to see a dupe. And I think that is because, again, holiday season is kicking in. There are so many fall releases, Halloween releases. It's my favorite time of the year for makeup industry. And I love this color story, not taking anything away, but I think we need to address the elephant in the room is the similar shades. So let's begin. We're going to go row by row and then I'll tell you what dupes am I using. So the first shade is called Michelson, I think, and this I have duped from the Crow palette. This is a matte black shade, but I know the Beaute shadow is matte black with a lot of red sparkles running throughout it. I have an exact shadow in my collection, just searching for the palette. The recently Calavera palette from Gourmand Girls has a very similar shade, which is called Candle. This one, it is black with red sparkles. So I am going to swatch that shade. Again, it totally depends on how you're using this shade. If you're going to pack it on your lid with some glitter glue, you would be able to see the red sparkle running throughout it. But if you are going to blend it out, it can be like a matte black shade. But let me swatch it for you guys so that you can see how pigmented the shade is. Look at that. And this is the first shadow dupe for you guys. Again, this is Candle from the Calavera palette. I am giving you several options just because I know some of the palettes, some of the people would have this palette, some of the people would not. If you do not care about matte with sparkles, I swear you are not missing out if you just use a matte black, and several of the shades are from this Wicked Widow Beauty Crow palette. Okay, let's move on to the next shade, which is also from that palette. This shade dupes the shade Drained, which is like a deeper, like a rusty red, I would say. This is from the Crow palette. It's not like a actual red. It's like a burnt red, like a deeper, like blood that has been drained out. That's exactly what it is. And this one is the shade Immortal from the Crow palette. So let's swatch that. It's more like a burgundy red, like a burnt red right there. You can see the depth in the shadow. It is so beautiful for a red smoky eye. Are you kidding me? This is going to be lovely. Again, this is Immortal from the Wicked Widow Beauty, the Crow palette. Okay, the next shadow is called Shadows. And this, I feel like Again, another shade from the Wicked Widow Beauty Crow palette, and this shade is called Vengeance, and this is such a beautiful shadow. It is like a holochromy shade. It looks like a deepened gunmetal shade. It is so much more. It has so much variance to it. But also, if you do not have the Crow palette, if you have the Harvest Moon palette, they have a very similar shade in that palette too. It's called Sparkling Cider. This one, very, very similar, okay? But let me show you Vengeance. Can you see that? It has holochromy particles. It has a deep base, but it shifts to a green, a purple. It has so much more like grunginess to it. It is so a Halloween shade. It's such a beautiful shade. So that is the shade Shadows Duped from the shade Vengeance from the Crow palette. Okay, let's move on to the next shade. Again, next banger, actually next three shades are from the Crow palette, so I'll stop saying Crow palette. This one is a true red shade, and this one is duping the shade called Immortality, and this one, and that shade is called Forever in the Crow palette. So let's swatch that, and you'll see the difference immediately, that this is such a true red shade, and this is like a burnt, like red, blood red shade. It's really, really pretty. And the last shade in the palette is like it's like a multichrome. I don't know if it is a multichrome or not, but it is a red to an orange shifting shade. Definitely a duochrome, if not multichrome. So I'm gonna swatch this. There you go. And this is the shade called Visions from the Crow palette. Can you see that shiftiness going? Red to an orangey golden shade. Very pretty. Again, the shade is Visions. So let me swatch that. There you go. So pretty. I'm going to leave this custom palette that I created on the counter and see how much I use it. Although I've created this look using this palette, if you cannot say, and I have recorded this, so you will see it towards the end of the video. Let's move on to the next row. Again, another shade from the Crow palette. A total banger, I would say. Look at that. The first 6 shades are from like the Crow palette. And this one is the shade called Devil's Night. Again, from the Crow palette. So let's watch that. It is such a shiny, silvery shade. It's so pretty. It's so glittery, so shiny. It's so beautiful. And that dupes a shade called Daylight Ripe. I think so. The second row, first shade. Okay, let's move on to the next 3 mattes in the palette, and all 3 of them are from the Ensley Rain Lands of Enchantment palette. So all 3, I'm going to swatch all 3. I'll tell you what shades they are. The blue shade is Edge of Night. The purple shade is Utopia, and the pastel purple shade is called Enlightened. So all 3 from Lands of Enchantment Ensley Rain palette. So let's swatch all of them. So the blue shade, I think that dupes the shade Lestat. I think I don't. Swatching there, you can see how deep and dark and blue it is. Really, really beautiful to deepen out any look. And then we have the shade, the purpley shade in the palette, that dupes the shade called Threshold. So let's swatch that. There you go. Okay, it's like a mid-tone purple shade, I would say. And then we have that lavendery purple shade, which dupes the shade called Predator. And let's swatch it right here. There you go. So those are the next 3 mattes duped to the palette. And the next shade is called Hello Brother, and that it's a holochromy shade that I duped from the shade called Bougie from the Harvest Moon palette from Ensley Rain. As you can see, let me take it out. It's like a red holochromy shade, but it has like a green flip to it. I'm not sure if Hello Brother looks like a red or a pink, but if it is close to pink, I definitely want to give you option. And if you do have Bella Beauty Bar's Dead Roses palette, the shade that is Drop Dead, this one is very, very similar to that. So I'm going to swatch this shade Drop Dead and Bougie together, okay? Just because I want to get that holochromy particle, but I also want a hint of pink. So I'm going to just swatch both of it, okay? There you go. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. Look at that. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. And that's duping the shade Hello Brother. I love it. Absolutely love it. I feel like I should open that window because it's so dark. Let me do that first. I don't know if it's gonna make any difference or not, but let's move on to the next row. This shade is from the Crow palette, and this is duping the shade Coffin from the palette. And this shade is called Iron's Gates, again from the Crow palette. So let's watch that. There you go. You can see how slate gray it is. How would I even say? It's not even a slate. It's like a cement gray shade. Look at that. Very, very pretty. Okay. Again, this dupes the shade Coffin from the Vamp palette. Okay, the next shade is called Eternal, and Eternal is actually duped with the Cold Moon shade from Ensley Rain, and this one is the shade, let me tell you what it is. It's number 16. Oh, number 16 is the shade called Cold Moon from the Cold Moon palette, okay? So I am gonna swatch that. It is like a lighter tone gray with a blue undertone to it. I am using this. Like while you look at it, you won't be able to say that it has like a blue tint to it. And that's exactly how it looks in the palette too. But it definitely, you can see it on the eyes when you swatch it, that it has like a blue undertone to it. I was first actually thinking about the Gargoyle palette, this shade Whale, this one. But this is, I feel like it's definitely more blue than it is like a gray blue. But this, you would be able to see it on the eyes that it has like a blue tint to it. So I wanted to take that. Okay. There you go. And that dupes the shade Eternal again. Okay, let's move on to the next fun shimmers. The next two are from the Cold Moon palette that we just mentioned. So this one is 21 and this one is 11. So let's see what it is. So the blue shimmer shade is Storm Fairy, and 11th shade, 8, 9, 10, 11, is called Keon from the Cold Moon palette. So Storm Fairy and Keon. Let's watch it. That is Storm Fairy. It's like it's definitely like a multi-chrome shade. It's like a grungy blue, like a denim blue to a purple shade, but definitely more cool tone, as you can see. Again, that dupes the shade called Claudia. And then we have the shade Keon from the Cold Moon. And this is definitely a multi-chrome. Actually a holochrome, I should say. And I don't even know how holochromy is the other shade, which is Up Dead. But this is something. And that's the shade Keon from the Ensley Rain Cold Moon palette. So I would say predominantly duping it out from the Wicked Widow Beauty Crow palette and the Cold Moon palette from Ensley Rain, okay? The last shadow in the palette is called Skin of the Dead, I think. And this I am dipping into another palette. I am taking Mad Witch Cosmetics Chance palette just because I was looking for a perfect white shade that looks like diamonds on the eyes with next to nothing as a base, and this shade Promise is the one that gives it to me, so I have to swatch this shade. But any sparkly white iridescent shade would just do it for you. So let me swatch this. Again, it's a very like a translucent base shadow, but has ton of sparkles running throughout. And there you go. And that is the shade that dupes the shade Skin of the Dead. And this is the entire palette swatched for you guys. And you can see the shifts, the dimension, the shiftiness, the grunginess, the vampiness that this palette has. So if you do not have any of these palettes, and if you were eyeing the Bella Beaute Bar's Vamp palette, I would say 100% yes to that, because I know the Bella Beaute Bar quality and it is absolutely breathtaking quality that they have. But if you do have these palettes, I feel like we definitely can get a very, very similar color story with the palettes that we have in the collection. I really hope that this was useful to you guys. If you're ready to see all of this in action and create this eye look with me, then please keep on watching. Okay, let's begin with the eye look. I'm so excited. I cannot even like wait to dive into it. I am gonna start with this shade and blend the purple with this lavender shade. And then I'm gonna deepen it out with this, blend it out with this. Let's see, okay? I don't even know where to start. That's the reality of it. I wanna start with this purple, and I'm gonna take that on the crease. And outer third of the crease, I would say. So I'm just gonna take that right there in the outer third of the crease. Okay. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other eye too. And these, I mean, the shades, I don't even need to say. It's absolutely high quality shades. You can see the way how it's blending. It's beautiful. Okay. Now I'm gonna let's take a smaller brush, and I'm gonna take this shade, the blue, and I'm gonna just deepen out the edge of this shadow. And you can see how beautifully that builds. I love it. For a second, I thought I didn't record. That would have been amazing. Okay, so I am just taking back the purple brush that we used. I mean the crease brush that we used the purple with. Tapping the edges so that it blends beautifully. Okay, now I'm gonna take that lavender shade, this one, and I'm gonna just blend the edges. That's so stunning. And then, just because I am using almost everything here, I am going to take a little bit of this shade, the gray blue shade. I'm just going to take that here in the inner portion of the crease. Just right there. Okay. Just melting it with that purple. And all of this like blends so beautifully. Look at that. I love it. Okay, now once we have everything all laid on the crease, I am going to take this blue on the lower lash line, and I'm only taking that in the extreme outer corners, and then I'm taking this gray on the rest of the lid. And then for the inner corners, I absolutely have to take, which I'm taking it out from the Chance palette as discussed, because this is, I feel, the most close shade that we have. Look at that. It's so pretty. Of course, you can take any sparkly diamond like shadow that you have in your collection. I just happen to love this the most, okay? The most. I'm sorry for the lighting. I'm really sorry. Okay, now what? Let's take this shade and I'm gonna place that in the outer third of the eye. Now when I feel like Brittany Ray did a similar look, like with purple. I did not mean to give you similar looks. Oh, look at that. It's so pretty. Okay, let's do something different right then. I am gonna take, oh, how can I not use that? I love it. Okay, let's take this first, the blue one. And I'm gonna take that and mix it with the other shade, just to give a little bit more contrast. And just to give a little bit more sparkle and shine and holochromy goodness, I am going to take this shade and just build it right on top. Okay. Oh, that's so pretty. So pretty. That's so pretty. Oh my gosh. I love it. Let me finish off this eye with some liner and mascara. And that's my final look. I really hope that this video was helpful, and if you were eyeing this palette, I know $72 is a lot of money for 15 shadows, and especially if you have these colors in your collection. And that's the main reason why I did this, because I was very drawn to this color story, and I feel like we achieved it pretty good. Okay, pretty good. I am very excited for the shadows that I chose for this palette, because I feel like if you are somewhere interested in Halloween color story, you would have these palettes in your collection, and I'm going to give you several other options. So let's actually dive into that. Let's talk a few palettes that have a similar color story, especially if you're looking for something very particular in like shadows. Okay, let's start off with Bella Beaute Bar's recently de-influenced palette. I feel like, let's talk the mattes. Okay, the threshold shade that was right in the center, it's very similar to this. The deep dark like maroony shade, you have a good like maroon, two maroons here, you have a good red here, you have a red to a orangey shifting shade here. Okay, what else? Like purpley shades, I know it won't be exactly similar to the ones that are there, but you have like a good chunk of purpley shades here, which you can mix and match and create a very similar color story. Again, I'm not saying that it is dupe by any means, but there are aspects of this palette that are very similar. And I know that this palette was super popular, but also it's not $72. Not that it's like super cheap. It's like somewhere in the 60s. But if you have it, I feel like if you were eyeing those shades, you definitely achieve it. Let's talk Dead Roses palette. I know, the holochromy shade that is calling out to me. This is another palette that was anti-Valentine's Day palette from Bella Beaute Bar. Again, we have those oranges, the burgundies. This shadow is very similar, I would say, to Hello Brother that is there. Although this is the one that has like that holochromy particles to it. Is it that different? I don't know. This shade is very similar to the one that is there in the center shade of that palette. So I would say, see, if you are eyeing those similar color story, if you're not eyeing those blues and grays, even this shade, this is a very nice deep like purpley blue shade. This one, it's a very nice shade. This palette I know a lot of people have, and I feel like you can create such a beautiful color story, especially if you were not eyeing like those grays aspects to it. Now, if you were another palette, Underland palette, coming very close to the Vamp palette release. I know a lot of people are like eyeing this too. These have some beautiful burgundy tones that like muddy, muted, it's not blue, but it's more like sagey green. The blue shimmer in the palette that I applied in the inner third, if you mix this, it's very similar to that. You have like beautiful red shimmers here. You also have a holochromy shade here, which can be very close to Up Dead. very close. Okay, so all these tones, it's nothing unique that you do not have it in the collection. You just need to see into your collection to see if it makes sense or not. Of course, the Crow palette, majority of the shades that were chosen in my custom palette were from the Crow palette. So you see a lot of like missing shades that were all from that palette. So if you have the Crow palette, you probably have like half of the palette in your collection, I would say. And even the blue shade that I did not use from this palette, just because it's not an exact one, but you have like similar like blues in the palette, so you can get like a very similar vibe. So I wanted to reference that too. Of course, the Lands of Enchantment palette, way off than the Halloween theme, but all the three shades that the mattes that were chosen were from this palette. So the pastel purple shade, the pinky purple, the center shade, and the deeper blue shade, everything from this. It also has a blue. Obviously, this blue is not the exact blue, but it has several blue to purple like shifting shade. It has holochrome shades, and I know a lot of people have this palette in the collection too. I really hope that showing like different palettes would have helped you to create like a similar color story. I'm just looking if I did miss out on anything or not. Even if you just purchased the Gargoyle palette, and if you were going through more of like that blue gray color story, if that is the one that called out to you, then there are definitely the blacks, the blues, the blue, like this blue is very, very similar to the ones that are there. They have some beautiful grays in the palette, this muted blue, like that gray blue shade. If you are eyeing the blue aspect of this, it's very beautiful. You also have like that very shifty, dimensional purple shade here. That can be very helpful. And I know these palettes have been coming in the market, in the industry. If you have it, I think you will absolutely enjoy it. So that's all I wanted to talk about this new Vamp palette from Bella Beaute Bar. Of course, I love the brand, but I cannot own everything from the brand. If I was sent in this PR, I would be over the moon excited. If this, although I do have all of this palette in my collection, I still would be ecstatic to receive this. But do I need to spend $72 for the existing shades that are there in my collection? I don't think that's a wise decision on my behalf. If you want to purchase it, I mean, nobody is stopping you. It is your money. You know how to use it. If this is the color story that brings you joy, yes, go forward. Bring some joy into your life. But that's all for today, guys. I am an affiliate with the brand Bella Beaute Bar. My code is Smithy Sony. If you want to support me, do use my code. I thank you very, very much. Or use anybody's code to save some money out of your purchase. But that's all for today. If you did like it, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And ring the notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.